I watched the email leave my outbox at 8:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I knew, before anyone said a word, that my career was over. Not set back. Not slowed down. Over. The kind of over where you update your LinkedIn from the parking lot because you can't face doing it from inside the building. Let me back up. Because every disaster has an origin story, and mine starts the night before with a group chat, a dare, and about 4 hours of sleep. My name is Marcus. I'm 29. At the time, I was a marketing coordinator at a mid-size logistics company called Vantex Solutions. We moved freight. Not glamorous, but good benefits, free coffee, and a CEO named Gerald Whitmore, who had, against all odds, become genuinely beloved in our office. Gerald was 61, wore fleece vests over button-downs every single day, brought donuts on Fridays, and remembered everyone's names, including the overnight cleaning crew. People actually liked this man. Like, for real. Every year, the marketing department was responsible for a birthday card for Gerald. Not a real card. A digital one, sent company-wide, signed by the whole department and distributed to all 200-plus employees before Gerald arrived at 9. It was a tradition, harmless, for 4 years running, completely uneventful. I had done the card twice before. Both times, I used the same greeting card website, picked something inoffensive, balloons, a little cake graphic, added everyone's names, sent it out. 8 minutes of work, tops. But this year, our social media coordinator Devin had been on a months-long AI kick. Devin is 26, endlessly enthusiastic, and completely immune to the concept of knowing when to stop. He'd been using AI image generators for everything. Campaign mock-ups, internal newsletter graphics, a birthday card for someone's dog. And because Devin had been hyping this stuff non-stop, and because we had a group chat called Marketing Misfits that mostly existed for complaining and daring each other into things, the idea came up. Monday night, around 10, I was sitting in my apartment, already running on fumes. I'd driven 4 hours round trip on Sunday to help my older brother Joel move, which meant I'd lifted furniture until my arms stopped working, and then slept on an air mattress with a slow leak. By Monday night, I was running on 2 cups of coffee and spite. Devin sent a message in the group chat. "Hey Marcus, you doing Gerald's card tomorrow?" I said yes. Devin said, "Dude, use an AI image generator. Way more impressive than the clip art site. I'll walk you through it." Our other colleague, Priya, who is 31 and absolutely should have talked me out of this, said, "Oh, that could actually be really cool." So now there were 2 of them, and I was tired. I said, "Fine." Devin explained that the prompts were important. You had to be specific or the image came out weird. He told me to write something like, "Professional birthday card illustration, cheerful, office-friendly, celebrating a business leader, clean design." I typed that into my phone's notepad so I wouldn't forget it. Then I fell asleep on my couch at 10:30 because I had genuinely nothing left. Alarm at 6 Tuesday morning, still on the couch. My neck felt like someone had wrung it out like a dish towel. Coffee number 1 at 6:15, coffee number 2 at 7. I got to the office at 7:45, which gave me a solid hour before Gerald arrived. Plenty of time. Couldn't be simpler. I opened my laptop, pulled up the AI generator Devin had linked, and went to type in the prompt. Here is where everything went wrong. Here is the exact, specific, deeply unfortunate sequence of events. I had saved the prompt on my phone. But I had also, earlier that morning while barely conscious, been texting my friend Ricky about a photo he'd sent from his bachelor party the weekend before. Ricky had sent a picture of himself at a bar looking absolutely feral, sunburned, making a weird face, holding a drink that was on fire. I'd started typing back something like, "Buddy, you look absolutely unhinged. This should be illegal. Where was this even taken?" I hadn't finished that message. Hadn't sent it, I'd gotten distracted, closed my messages, and that half-written sentence was just sitting there in the draft field. When I went to copy the prompt off my phone, I was moving fast, because I always move fast before my 3rd coffee. I tapped what I thought was my notepad. It was not my notepad. I was still in the message thread with Ricky. And when I hit select all and copy, I copied my half-finished, completely unhinged text about looking illegal and feral at a bachelor party, not the professional birthday card prompt. I did not notice this. I pasted it into the AI image generator and hit generate. Now, I want to pause here and explain what AI image generators do when you feed them chaotic input containing words like unhinged, illegal, feral, and fire. They do not say sorry, I don't understand. They do their best, and their best is sometimes terrifying. The image loaded in about 12 seconds. I looked at it. Let me describe this carefully because the full picture matters. It was a man, middle-aged, in a suit, sitting at a table that was on fire. Not subtly on fire. Fully engulfed. The man was grinning. Not a normal grin. The kind that shows too many teeth. In one hand he held a drink with actual visible flames off the top. His tie was askew. His eyes were slightly too large and pointing in marginally different directions, the way AI faces sometimes go wrong. In the background, other figures were also grinning too hard. One of them appeared to be holding a live animal, though it wasn't clear what kind. And at the bottom of the image, in slightly wobbly text, the A I had decided to add on its own, were the words, "Where was this even taken?" I looked at this for probably 3 seconds. And then I thought, that's a little chaotic, but it's kind of funny, and Gerald seems like a guy who might appreciate something offbeat. I was tired. Devin and Priya had said the AI thing would be cool. It was 7:52 in the morning, and I had not had my third coffee. I saved the image, opened my email, attached the image, typed, "Happy birthday, Gerald," from your marketing team in the body, added the reply all distribution list for the entire office, all 214 employees, because that was how the card had always been sent. Gerald would receive it, and so would everyone else. I hit send at 8:47 a.m. For about 30 seconds, nothing happened. I got up, went to the kitchen, poured coffee number 3. I was actually feeling good. Task done. Card sent. Morning moving along. I got back to my desk at 8:49. 6 new emails. The first was from Priya. The subject line was just her name in all caps, followed by 3 question marks. Priya? That's not how subject lines work. That was a person in distress, typing whatever her hands decided. I opened it. The body said, Marcus. Marcus, what did you send? My stomach dropped. I went to my sent folder, opened the email I had just sent to 214 people, including Gerald Whitmore, looked at the attached image for the second time. Here's the thing about looking at something a second time when you are now properly awake and fully understand the stakes. You see it differently. What had looked kind of chaotic, but maybe funny at 7:52, now looked, at 8:49, like an AI fever dream of a man losing his mind at what appeared to be a crime scene celebration. The fire, the teeth, the unidentified animal. The text reading "Where was this even taken" across the bottom, like a caption from a completely different universe. For Gerald Whitmore, on his 61st birthday, from the marketing department. I don't remember what sound I made, but Devin, 2 desks away, looked up immediately. He said, "What happened?" I turned my monitor toward him. The color left Devin's face. He stared at the screen. He opened his mouth and closed it. Then he said, very quietly, "Oh, nobody." That was worse than yelling. The quiet "oh, nobody" from the person who told you to use AI in the first place is one of the loneliest sounds I have ever heard. More emails were coming in. The read receipts were piling up. People were opening the birthday email, expecting balloons, expecting a little cake graphic, and getting instead a burning-suited man with a chaos grin and a mystery animal. They were replying. Not to me directly. To each other. The chain was already splitting in 4 directions. Our office manager, Sandra, 55, 0 patience for anything unprofessional, sent a reply all that said only, "I am assuming this was sent in error." That reply all went to all 214 people, including Gerald. Then Phil from accounting replied all with just a crying laughing emoji, to everyone, including Gerald. I got up, went to the bathroom, stood in front of the sink, and looked at myself in the mirror for about 15 seconds. I said out loud, to no one, "Okay." I went back to my desk and drafted a recall request on the email, which I already knew was useless, because you cannot unsee an AI image of a man sitting in front of a table fire, holding a flaming drink. At 8:58, 11 minutes after I sent the email, my manager called me. Her name was Theresa, 44, sharp, and she had this specific tone she used when she was very unhappy but also slightly amazed by the situation. I'd heard it once before, when Devin had accidentally published a draft campaign to the company's public social media page before it was approved. That had been bad. This was worse. She said, "Marcus, my office, now." I stood up. The open plan office had about 30 people in it. It was 8 minutes to 9. Gerald would arrive in 8 minutes. Every single one of those 30 people watched me walk from my desk to Theresa's glass-walled office at the end of the room. Phil from accounting, the crying laughing guy, gave me a look that was half sympathy and half good luck with that, pal. I went in. Theresa closed the door. She turned her monitor toward me. The email was open. The image was full size on her screen. The burning man. The teeth. Where was this even taken? She said, "Tell me exactly what happened." I told her everything. The group chat, Devon's AI idea, Priya agreeing it sounded cool, the phone, the wrong prompt, the text to Ricky about the bachelor party photo, the fact that I hadn't slept properly, the fact that I had genuinely thought at 7:52 that this was kind of offbeat but maybe okay. When I finished, Theresa was quiet. Then she said, "You sent a birthday card that says, 'Where was this even taken?' to Gerald. To Gerald Whitmore, our CEO, who is 61 years old today, and to all 214 employees." "Yes," I said, both times. She pinched the bridge of her nose. She looked at the ceiling. She said, "I'm going to need you to go back to your desk and not touch your email for the rest of the morning." I went back to my desk. It was 9:03. Gerald had just arrived. I could see the glass-walled conference room from where I sat, and Theresa had already gone to intercept him by the elevators. A conversation was happening that I couldn't hear but could absolutely imagine. Devon leaned over and whispered, "How bad is it?" I said, "I don't know yet." Priya messaged me on the internal chat. "I'm so sorry I said to use the AI thing. This is partially my fault." I said, "It's not your fault." I pasted the wrong text. She asked what text. I explained the whole Ricky situation. There was a long pause. Then Priya said, "Oh, Marcus." That was the second sympathetic "oh" of the morning. People kept saying my name, followed by a sad noise, and it was starting to feel like a funeral. I spent the next 2 hours sitting at my desk doing nothing productive because I couldn't concentrate. The email chain had gone quiet. Sandra's sharp reply all had scared most people into silence, but I could feel the awareness of what I'd done moving through the building. Every time someone walked past my desk, they looked at me half a second too long. The woman from HR, Brenda, walked by at 10:15 and made eye contact in a way that meant something was coming. At 11, Brenda came back. She said, "Marcus, can you come with me?" I followed her to a small meeting room near HR. She had a notepad. She had a printed copy of the email, which meant someone had physically printed the image of the burning man, which meant it was now a document. It had a timestamp. It was in a folder. Brenda was professional, not cruel. She walked me through what the email looked like from a policy standpoint. Inappropriate image sent company-wide, generated using a third-party AI tool on company time, and asked me to walk her through what had happened. I told the story again. Same story. Wrong prompt, sleep-deprived, copied the wrong text. Did not intend to send a burning chaos image to the CEO. Brenda wrote things down. She said HR would need to consult with Theresa before next steps could be determined. She used the phrase "next steps" 3 times. I counted. I asked her directly, "Am I getting fired?" She said, "I'm not in a position to say that right now." Which is HR for probably not ruled out. I walked back to my desk, ate a granola bar I found in my drawer, and stared at a spreadsheet without seeing a single number. At 12:30, Devon and Priya asked if I wanted to get lunch. I said no, I wasn't hungry. Devon apologized again. I told him to stop, because he genuinely hadn't done anything wrong. He told me AI generators existed. That wasn't a crime. What I had done with that information was entirely on me. At 1 p.m. I got a text from my brother Joel. "Hey, did something happen at work?" "My friend Karen works at your company and said there was an email incident." The news had already made it outside the building. I texted Joel that I'd explain later and put my phone in my desk drawer. At 2:15, Theresa called me back into her office. I walked that same walk across the open plan floor. Fewer people looked this time. Phil from accounting was on a call and didn't even glance up. Small mercy. I sat across from Theresa. She had a folder open on her desk. She looked at me for a second. Then she said, "Gerald wants to talk to you." I stopped breathing for a moment. I said, "Now?" She said, "Now." Gerald's office was on the 4th floor. I'd been up there maybe twice in 4 years. I followed Theresa to the elevator, and we rode up in silence. Soft jazz played. I stared at the floor numbers. Gerald's assistant Derek waved us in. Gerald was standing at his window looking out at the parking lot when we walked in. Fleece vest. He turned around. I had no prepared speech, nothing organized. I said, Gerald, I am genuinely so sorry. I didn't mean it was the wrong text. I copied the wrong thing from my phone. And I know that's not an excuse, but I want you to know I would never intentionally. Gerald held up one hand. I stopped talking. He said, Marcus, I've been receiving birthday cards in corporate settings for 35 years. He paused. That is the most interesting one I have ever gotten. I had no idea how to read that. He turned his monitor around. He had saved the image. He was looking at it with an expression I couldn't fully decode. Then he read the caption out loud, slowly. Where was this even taken? And then Gerald Whitmore, 61 years old, fleece vest and all, laughed. Not a polite chuckle. An actual laugh, the kind that makes a person's shoulders shake. I looked at Theresa. She looked at me. Her expression said, this is not what I expected either. Gerald collected himself and said, Theresa told me what happened. The wrong text, the copied prompt, the whole thing. I'm not angry, Marcus. Genuinely. I've done things on no sleep that I would not like to have documented. He looked at the image again. He said, the thing on the far right, is that supposed to be a raccoon? I looked, the unidentified animal. I said I honestly didn't know. He said it might be. We spent a weird 10 seconds trying to identify the AI animal together in the CEO's fourth floor office. Then he got direct, not harsh, just straightforward. He said, you need to be more careful. This could have been worse. It wasn't because I happen to have a sense of humor. But it could have been. HR has notes, it goes in your file, and this is a formal conversation. Understood? I said yes, understood completely. He said, good. Now get back to work, and please, for everyone's sake, get some sleep tonight. I said, yes, sir. And then, because my brain still wasn't fully working, I said, happy birthday. Gerald pointed at me and said, there it is. That's all I needed. Theresa walked me back to the elevator. She said, you are extraordinarily lucky. I said, I am aware. She said, don't ever let me walk you to the fourth floor again under these circumstances. I said, agreed. Back at my desk, I sat down. Devon looked at me with wide eyes. Priya had spun her chair around. I gave them both a thumbs up. Devon visibly deflated with relief. Priya put her hand over her heart. But here's the thing about surviving a workplace catastrophe. Surviving it doesn't mean it's over. It means you now have to live inside the story forever. By Thursday of that same week, someone had printed the image and put it up in the break room. Not cruelly, affectionately, the way offices do with inside jokes. Someone had added a hand-drawn caption underneath. Vantex Marketing setting the standard. It stayed on that wall for 2 weeks before HR quietly took it down. Gerald did not let it die either. The following Friday, when he brought donuts, he put a sticky note on the box that said, where was this even taken? People lost their minds. Phil from accounting photographed it and sent it to his friends, and I know this because one of those friends knew someone I knew, and I heard about it secondhand a month later. The phrase became a running office joke. Someone shows up to a meeting looking rough. Where was this even taken? Someone burns their lunch in the microwave. The smell drifts through the whole floor. Someone says it and the room cracks up. I was the origin point of a workplace meme I had absolutely no control over. The HR note in my file was real. Theresa made sure I knew it. About 2 weeks after the incident, she sat me down for what she called a professional development conversation. Reviewing content before sending, company policy on third-party AI tools for official communications, the importance of not operating on 4 hours of sleep when you have time-sensitive tasks. All reasonable. All things I should have already been doing. Devon apologized to me again about 2 months later, unprompted. We were getting coffee, and he said he felt responsible for putting the idea in my head. I told him for probably the 4th time that he was not responsible. He had not copied the wrong text. That was mine. He eventually accepted this. Priya took a different lesson from the whole thing. She started stress testing every mass email before it went out. Sends it to herself first, checks the attachment, reads the body, waits 60 seconds. She built an actual pre-send checklist that she runs through every time. I respected that. I built something similar. My friend, Ricky, when I finally told him the full story, was delighted. He said, "Wait, so my bachelor party photo indirectly caused a company-wide birthday incident for a CEO?" I said essentially yes. He said that was the best compliment his bachelor party had ever received. He told the story at his wedding reception 4 months later. I was there. I heard him tell it. I got applause. Not the kind I would have chosen, but applause. The real, practical changes I made after all of this. I do not copy-paste from my phone when I'm tired anymore. I type things out fresh every single time. If I'm pulling a prompt or a piece of text from somewhere, I read it twice before I paste it. It sounds so basic. It is so basic. I should have been doing it all along. I also do not generate and immediately send anything. There's always a gap now. Generate the image, save it, step away 5 minutes, come back with fresh eyes. 5 minutes is enough time for your brain to notice that the man in the image is sitting in front of actual fire and has too many teeth. And I do not send mass emails without a test send first. Myself, then Theresa, then the full list. 3 steps, no exceptions. Embarrassingly simple precautions. I already knew them in theory. It took the burning CEO birthday card to make me actually follow through on them. 14 months later, I was still at Vantex, still in marketing. I got a decent performance review. Theresa noted that my attention to process had improved significantly since the incident, which was her very professional way of saying the incident had been educational. Gerald still said hi to me every time he came down for donuts. One time he said, "No AI cards this year, Marcus," and then winked, and I laughed because what else do you do? The image is still saved on my personal hard drive. The burning man with the too many teeth. The mystery animal. Where was this even taken in wobbly A? I text across the bottom. Every time I'm tired and rushing and about to do something fast without checking, I think about that image. I think about Gerald turning his monitor around to show me he'd saved it. I think about Brenda and her folder, and the phrase "next steps" said 3 times in a row. And then I slow down. So I guess I owe that AI Chaos birthday card a grudging thank you. It cost me a sleepless night, a formal HR note, and the permanent status of being the guy who sent that email. But it also made me a slightly less reckless person to have around a keyboard. Small wins. So here's what I want to know from you. When I sat down across from Theresa that first time, and she said, "Tell me exactly what happened," I laid out the entire story. Every detail. No holding back. Do you think that was the right call? Or would you have said less and kept it simple? Drop your answer in the comments. I've genuinely wondered ever since whether I handled that part right, or whether I just got lucky that Gerald turned out to be Gerald.